This country has been devolving into a lack of civility and respect for years. We see it in politics, sports, schools, and just general social interaction. We have now normalized behavior and language that just a decade ago would have been viewed as appalling. The most important priority for politicians is re-election. Some of these politicians started to believe that supporting the president would hurt their own re-election prospects. You'll start to see some cracks in that loyalty. Well, you're seeing it now. Hello again. Welcome to the Ruthless Truth. I am your host, Truth Davis. In this forum, I share opinions, thoughts, truths on a wide variety of topics based on what I believe to be a unique life experience. I'm an inner city kid who ascended to the C-suite of a Fortune 100 company. I've lived in 8 different states across all 4 time zones. So I've seen some things. My intent is to share my experiences and perspective that perhaps can assist you in your life or career journey. Please follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5 and subscribe to the YouTube channel Ruthless Truth. General format, I'll share some initial commentary or current news or just my thoughts. Then I'll have a deeper discussion on one topic, which will be today's truth. And then I like to finish with an American history fun fact. Okay, a few thoughts on current news. So, as expected, last week the president did sign the bill requiring the release of the Epstein files. I remain skeptical that we will see anything anytime soon, but we'll see. Also, we're now fully in holiday season. Hope your Thanksgiving was wonderful. Did you take some time to consider and reflect on what you're thankful for? I realize this could be a challenge this year as there are so many prevailing issues in the country. Grocery prices, housing pricing and affordability, job insecurity. Just in the past week, we've seen layoff announcements from major corporations, including UPS, Apple, Meta, Verizon, Target, General Motors, and many more. The labor uncertainty is a key factor in the significant decline in the Consumer Confidence Index, which in November reached its lowest point since this past April. So I get it. There are lots of reasons to be wary and to be stressed, but don't lose sight of all the things to be happy for. Family time is precious. And as a person who lost both parents recently in a 3-year period, I encourage you to please appreciate your family members now. Also, it's human nature to focus on the negative. We spend a lot of time thinking about all the people we perceive to be ahead of us, not realizing there are probably just as many, if not more, behind us. Believe me, there are millions of people who would love to be where you are right now. I recently ran into an old classmate and I asked him how he was doing, and I loved his response. He said, "Not as good as some, but better than most." This is a man with a healthy perspective. Try to appreciate what you have, because with the exception of Elon Musk, every person on this planet can point to someone with more assets, but it doesn't mean they're happier. Another point. Let me first say, I don't derive a lot of pleasure from saying, "I told you so." That sentiment can actually be a little petty. But with that risk in mind, I told you so. On multiple occasions, I've made the point that far and away, the most important priority for politicians is re-election. I'm not saying they don't care about the country or their constituents, but all of that comes in second to getting re-elected. I also pointed out that every member of Congress and many senators are up for re-election in 2026. But you know who isn't running next year? The president. And I said if some of these politicians started to believe that supporting the president would hurt their own reelection prospects, you'll start to see some cracks in that loyalty. Well, you're seeing it now. I mean, in just the last 3 weeks, Republicans in Congress have pushed back on the president's agenda rather than just falling in line in blind support. They voted to release the Epstein files over months of resistance and imitation from the president. The president recently announced that he was going to send $2,000 to every American household to help address the affordability issue he has only recently embraced. GOP leadership told him, we don't have any money for that. So there's no money to support that promise. And we're seeing even more defections, including a recent resignation. It appears that our political leaders are slowly beginning to focus on the issues that we care about, like affordability, healthcare, and job security. So I'm cautiously optimistic that in 2026, we will actually see legislation and progress that will be a benefit to all of us. And finally, I just want to take a moment to discuss civility. I'm sure many of you saw the report of the video when the president pointed his finger in the face of a female reporter and said to her, "Quiet, piggy." Apparently, that really pissed off a lot of people, and there have been all these screams about how wrong and disrespectful this was. I mean, really? Now we have outrage? This country has been devolving into a lack of civility and respect for years. We see it in politics, sports, schools, and just general social interaction. We have now normalized behavior and language that just a decade ago would have been viewed as appalling. So while I basically yawned at the outrage over the past week, it does provide an opportunity for discussion. So a couple of points on that. While you may not be able to control the rudeness of others, you can choose how to yourself behave, choose how you behave. So lead by example. Speak to people respectfully, even when there's disagreement. This is especially important if you have children because they will model your behavior. Second, how about we start normalizing calling people out when they're rude? When the president disrespected the reporter, I couldn't effing believe not one single person spoke up or defended her. You know, when rude behavior goes unchallenged, you're basically condoning it. We need to say, hey, that's not okay. I truly believe many people who display this loud and discourteous behavior think it makes them look tough. To me, it makes them look like a little bitch. Okay. Let's get to today's truth. Today's truth. In today's truth, I want to discuss entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial spirit. Do you have an entrepreneurial drive or dream? If so, what has stopped you from pursuing it? I mean, of course, everyone acknowledges the risk, as most of us know the majority of new ventures fail. But assuming you're willing to assume the risk, there may be two other factors that are driving your hesitation. One, you don't believe you have a great or innovative product or business idea. Or two, you feel you've waited too long and now you're too old. Okay, I reject both of those factors, and they should not be the reason for not pursuing your dreams. And by the way, I'd like to expand that discussion beyond entrepreneurship, because the points I'm about to make also apply if you are working in a business as an employee. Let's start with the development of a great idea. You know, the prevailing thinking is that successful entrepreneurs had a business idea that no one else had developed or considered. And while that's nice and ideal, it's not necessarily true. Do you realize how many great businesses and products were simply improvements on existing products or really just copycat services? Let's look at just a few of them. You know, Thomas Edison did not invent the light bulb. Edison discovered how to sell the light bulb. In fact, Edison was not the savant inventor that is popularized in history. He was much more of a businessman than an inventor. Okay? Edison actually exploited the true inventors of his time, such as Nikola Tesla. And I'll tell that story in a subsequent episode. Let me ask you this. Which store you think launched first? Lowe's Home Improvement or the Home Depot? Well, Lowe's Home Improvement opened its first store in North Wilkes-Barre, North Carolina, and it was Mr. L.S. Lowe's North Wilkes-Barre Hardware, opened in 1921 by Lucius Smith Lowe's. Home Depot opened its first store in 1979, founded by Arthur Blank, Bernard Marcus, and 3 others. So despite a 60-year head start, Lowe's is only the second largest home improvement store, trailing Home Depot. Home Depot was able to surpass Lowe's because of a stronger focus on the professional customer, its superior supply chain and inventory management, and a better e-commerce system. Even Facebook was just an enhancement of an existing social media platform, MySpace. You remember MySpace? In fact, Sean Parker, who founded Napster and served as the first president of Facebook, once stated, quote, Facebook should not have won. The only reason Facebook won was due to the growth and competence of MySpace as systematically over a period of many years, end quote. And most people don't even remember that MySpace was only improving on the original social network, Friendster. Friendster launched in March 2003. MySpace launched in August of the same year. Facebook didn't launch until 2004. But by late 2007, Facebook had surpassed MySpace and went on to dominate the social network space and make Mark Zuckerberg the youngest billionaire in the world. And finally, one of my favorites, Oreo cookies. The first cream-filled chocolate sandwich cookie was Hydrox, launched in 1908 by Sunshine Biscuits. But through smart advertising and pricing, Oreo surpassed Hydrox to the point the public thought Hydrox was the copycat product. Oreo launched in 1912. So you don't need to have a brilliant, innovative idea. Improving or even copying someone else's idea can be just as successful. You know, it's very common to see small businesses that have a great product or service, but aren't really growing or expanding. I often find that these owners are good operators, but they're poor at sales and marketing. These types of situations represent great entrepreneurial opportunities. And in a couple of minutes, I will share the greatest ever example of this type of venture. You can also apply this approach in the workplace. Your employer, as well as every company that ever existed, is always looking for ways to improve. And you have 4 basic buckets of improvement: speed, efficiency, quality, and profit. Or said another way, make things go faster, better, more efficiently, or make more money. Sometimes it can be as simple as common sense. When I started working at Comcast, one of the recurring issues in the business was that when customers rolled off a promotion, for example, in order to entice people to try a new service, it was often promoted with an offer of 3 months free. The thinking was that after they've enjoyed a service for 3 months, the customer would have no problem now paying for it. But that's not what was happening. As soon as the promotion ended, approximately 80% of the customers would call into the call center. They either wanted to cancel the service, extend the free promotion, or receive some other type of discount. So Comcast was constantly experiencing these call spikes in the call center that they didn't have the capacity to handle. So waiting times increased, customers grew more frustrated, and we struggled to service all customers, even those who were not on the promotion. So I just asked the question, what would happen if we eliminated all the temporary discount deals? You would have thought I asked, what would happen if we started abusing pets? Comcast had been promoting this way for years, and it had just become the way they did business. The questions came back at me. How would we get customers? How would we sell new services to existing customers? How else are we going to grow the business? This is how our customers buy. And I said, no, this is how we sell to them. We have trained the customers and our sales teams that this is the only way to promote our products. But we're in a constant state of turmoil in the call center and are pissing off current customers. It just doesn't seem worth it. I pointed out that in the US, there were many, many premium products and services that were successfully sold without discounting or promotions. I said, if we don't believe that our products can command full price, then that means they're priced too high. And I know you all don't want to cut prices. Quick end of the story. I convinced the company to eliminate all the short-term discount promotions. I focused on the advertising on selling the quality of the product instead of the price deal. We continued to build sales while making the call centers more efficient and better at servicing customers. Internally, this was seen as innovation, and I was recognized and rewarded for it. I'm sure if you look around your workplace, you can identify a few opportunities for improvement. Flush out your idea and make your argument. The worst thing that could happen is they say no. But you'll still get credit for showing initiative and thinking about the business. Okay, we've talked about the one entrepreneurial barrier or excuse of not having a great idea. The other one I mentioned is people thinking it's too late or they're too old. Business history dispels this belief. Bernie Marcus started Home Depot at age 50 after being fired from his job. Arianna Huffington started the Huffington Post at age 54. Harlan Colonel Sanders started KFC at age 62. And if you want to hear his complete story, Harlan Sanders is the American History Fun Fact in episode 19. And finally, Grandma Moses began her career as a painter at age 78. Finally, I want to highlight an example of a successful entrepreneur who shatters both of the discussed barriers of not having an original idea and two, being too old. In 1954, 52-year-old Ray Kroc was a milkshake mixer salesman for Gold Castle. And at that time, his sales were plummeting because Hamilton Beach had recently launched a higher quality product at a lower price. But one of Ray's clients was actually increasing their orders. Richard and Maurice McDonald had built a successful restaurant business serving quickly made, tasty burgers and fries. Kroc saw growth potential and convinced the brothers to begin franchising. Now, initially, Ray Kroc was hired as a franchise agent, where Kroc would receive 1.9% of sales, okay? But Kroc wanted to go much bigger and expand the business, while the McDonald's brothers wanted to keep the number of locations and franchises at a small, manageable number. So it's his growing frustration with the McDonald's lack of vision and ambition. In 1961, Kroc purchased the McDonald's brothers' equity in the company and began the company's worldwide reach. The sale cost Kroc $2.7 million, which is about $28 million in today's dollars. Kroc standardized operations, insisting that any burger anywhere in the world should taste the same. The company he purchased at age 52 in 1961 grew exponentially. And by the time of his death in 1984, McDonald's had 7,500 outlets in the United States and in 31 other countries and territories. The total system-wide sales of its restaurants were more than $8 billion in 1983, and his personal fortune amounted to almost $600 million. Okay, so let's summarize the lesson here. 1, you don't need a brilliant, never-before-conceived business idea to become a successful entrepreneur. Sometimes you can just improve on an existing model or even be a copycat. 2, this approach can also be successful within a corporate environment. There are always rewards for people who develop improvements that grow the business. And 3rd, and finally, you're never too old to pursue your dreams. Go for it. Okay, let's get to today's American History Fun Fact. Today's American History Fun Fact. Okay, this is the story of Play-Doh, one of the world's most popular toys. But the path to success was unexpected and quite unforeseen. The story begins in 1912 with the formation of the Cut-All Products Company based in Cincinnati, Ohio. Cut-All's original and core business was manufacturing wallpaper cleaners. The product, developed by Noah McVicker, was basically a putty that was very effective at removing coal residue from wallpaper. Coal was often used for home heating, but over time, the soot would build up in homes and businesses and needed to be removed. But after World War II, coal use decreased significantly due to the popularity of natural gas in home heating appliances. As such, demand for Cut-All's products also greatly declined. And the subsequent launch of vinyl-based wallpaper products made the cleaning products virtually obsolete. So Cut-All was facing the potential of bankruptcy as the market for its product had evaporated. So to help address the crisis, Noah McVicker brought in his nephew, Joe McVicker, to help save the company from bankruptcy. But it wasn't Joe who came up with the idea that would rescue the company. In the late 1950s, Joe received a call from his sister-in-law, nursery school teacher Kay Zufall, who had recently read a newspaper article explaining how children were making art projects with the wallpaper cleaning putty. So she urged Noah and Joseph to manufacture and market the compound as a toy putty for children. So Joe and his uncle Noah agreed to pursue the idea and decided to name the new product Rainbow Modeling Compound. What? Really? For kids? Fortunately, Kay and her husband had a much better naming idea, Play-Doh. Oh, thank goodness for the sister-in-law. So Joe began pitching the new toy at education conventions and to stores. And believing they had a viable product and business, in 1956, the McVickers formed the Rainbow Crafts Company to manufacture and sell Play-Doh. The next year, following an in-store demonstration, the department store Woodward and Lothrop in Washington, D.C. began selling Play-Doh in their toy department. Now, the first Play-Doh compound came only in an off-white 1.5 pound can. But by 1957, the company introduced the distinctive red, yellow, and blue colors that we know today. That same year, Play-Doh was selling in Macy's in New York and Marshall Field's in Chicago. The McVickers wanted to promote Play-Doh much more heavily. They really thought the growth potential, but they didn't have much of an advertising budget. So to promote the new product, Joe approached children's entertainer Robert Keeshan, better known as Captain Kangaroo. And he approached him with a deal. If Keeshan promoted Play-Doh on his CBS television show once a week, his production company would receive a 2% royalty for the amount sold. Sales skyrocketed. And by 1958, Play-Doh sales reached $3 million, equivalent to $33 million in today's dollars. Noah McVicker and Joseph McVicker were finally granted their patent in 1965, 10 years after Play-Doh was first introduced. The formula remains a trade secret to this day, with Hasbro admitting only that it remains primarily a water, salt, and flour-based product. And although non-toxic, it should not be eaten. In 1965, the McVickers sold Rainbow Crafts Company to General Mills. And from there, it changed hands many times until it was purchased by Hasbro in 1991, who owns Play-Doh to this day. A few other facts about Play-Doh. More than 2 billion cans of Play-Doh were sold between 1955 and 2005. And in 2005, Play-Doh was being sold in 75 countries at 95 million cans a year. So distinctive is the smell that a fragrance library commemorated the toy's 50th anniversary by creating a limited edition perfume for, quote, highly creative people who seek a whimsical scent reminiscent of their childhood. The toy even has its own commemorative day, National Play-Doh Day, on September 18th each year. Okay, that's all I have for you today on the Ruthless Truth. Thanks again so much for listening. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Ruthless Truth, and there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. Thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.